Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Hiring School Cleaning Staff During a Labor Shortage. My name is Sarah Porter, and I'm the Director of Healthy Green Schools and Colleges, a partnership between Healthy Schools Campaign and Green Seal that combines HSC's extensive experience working with leading school facility directors and Green Seal's globally recognized credibility in science-based standard development. Healthy Green Schools and Colleges provides school facility leaders nationwide with resources to transform the health and sustainability of school and university environments. The centerpiece of this multifaceted program is our new Healthy Green Schools and Colleges standard for healthy, sustainable facility management programs. The standard is out for public right now, actually through the end of this week. So if you haven't yet reviewed it and shared your feedback with us, please do so. Just follow the link in the chat for more information. In addition to that standard, as you can see here, our program also includes an assessment tool so that schools can measure themselves against the standard, an implementation guidebook to help improve on areas where there might be opportunities, and a points-based certification that will help provide schools with the recognition they deserve for their incredible programs. Most importantly, the program includes a network of school facility directors from across the country to share and learn from one another and accelerate the adoption of best practices. Our full program will launch later this fall, but we're currently seeking K-12 and higher education institutions to sign on as early adopters. These early adopters have the opportunity to share their expertise and help shape the program and its elements. If you are interested in becoming an early adopter, please follow the link in the chat for more information. There is no requirement for what your current program looks like, only a willingness to participate and provide us feedback. I hope that you'll join us. Before we dig into today's topic, I want to mention two more things. First, I want to thank the sponsors of our Healthy Green Schools and Colleges program, including and especially platinum sponsors Diversey, Georgia Pacific, and Gojo, the makers of Purell. Today's program and the development of the standard I just mentioned are made possible with support from these sponsors, so thank you very much. Second, at the end of this month, on July 28th, we're going to be hosting our second summer webinar on the American Rescue Plan and how those funds can be used to improve cleaning programs and facility programs overall. Please tune into that webinar. You can register for that one the same way that you did for this one, and there's a link in your chat directly to that registration. I hope that you can join us on the 28th. So for today's program, we will be running for about an hour. And a recording of this webinar is going to be available to view later. We'll actually send it out to you through email with a link, and it will also be archived on the Healthy Green Schools and Colleges website. We're going to save the bulk of our time today for a Q&A session with our panelists. You can ask questions at any time throughout the webinar using that Q&A button at the bottom of your, may not necessarily be at the bottom, but on your Zoom viewer. Please don't hesitate to send questions at any time throughout. We will answer as many questions as we can at the end. As you all may know, many schools and universities are struggling to hire cleaning staff for the 2021-22 school year. Increased demand for cleaning processes and frequencies as a result of new COVID protocol, a national labor shortage, and tightened budgets are making the hiring of cleaning staff at schools very, very challenging. In today's webinar, we will hear from members of our steering committee about some of the ways their programs have been able to recruit and hire cleaning personnel for the new school year. On our panel today, we have Tony Almeida, who's the manager of custodial services at Elk Grove Unified School District in Elk Grove, California. Kim Thomas, director of facilities management at the University of Georgia in Athens. And Erin Uresti, the Assistant Director of Custodial and Housekeeping Services, the University of California in Riverside. Again, these folks, are here to share their experiences and happy to answer questions. So definitely encourage you to join in that Q&A with them once they're done speaking. First, I'd like to introduce Tony Almeida from Elk Grove Unified School District. Tony is going to talk to us today about the state of hiring, sort of this challenge that's facing schools across the country right now, and also in particular at his school in Northern California. It's a tall order getting ready for the upcoming school year without a full complement of staff. So Tony, thank you for being here today, given all the things you have on your plate right now and not nearly enough help. We really appreciate you being so generous with your time and are looking forward to what you have to share. Tony?
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for the Healthy Schools campaign for having us talk this morning and this afternoon, wherever you guys are located. So a little bit about Elk Grove. We're the 5th largest in the state of California. Our custodial department is roughly around 300 staff and about 40 to 60 active substitutes. So I say that to say that because of the sheer size of the department, our hiring process never ends. It's a 24-hour operation, so we're constantly hiring, screening individuals, whether we're in a pandemic or not. It just never ends. So we're always looking for talent. However, over the last 16 months, COVID has impacted our hiring process, and it has taught us one thing. It has taught us that folks look at us a little deeper and closer because of how essential we are to the operations of the school. But a little history on us. Pre-COVID, our hiring practices were pretty standard, but I've always tried to champion a way to where we can, I don't want to say rush, but if we can improve the process by even a few weeks, and I know I say a few weeks, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but maybe some of you on the call perhaps have a timeline. Maybe you want to hire somebody within 30 days, or maybe 2 weeks is your deadline to onboard somebody. Our common practice is 4 to 6 weeks pre-COVID. And obviously, we're a government agency. Things are a little different compared to private industry. We have to advertise. And our only form of advertising as of right now is through EdJoin. I'm sure some of you on the call are familiar with EdJoin. We traditionally advertise for about 2 weeks. And from there, HR releases us the documents, and we start the screening process. We start the interview process, and all that takes time. It has to pass through many desks before it reaches our department. And then we have to schedule appointments with each and every individual. Now, of course, we're doing everything via Zoom instead of in person. So trying to learn that platform, get cameras in place, that was another sort of delay. Once we interview the individual, we have two platforms, really. One is to hire at-will substitute employees, and then there's another employment where we look at hiring permanent employees, and both are two different processes. To onboard somebody pre-COVID was 4 to 6 weeks. During the pandemic, and still to this day, it almost tripled in time. So the quickest we've onboarded somebody during the COVID process, during COVID, has been 6 weeks, has been the soonest we can get somebody, for the simple fact that they have to do all of their pre-employment. They have to do their fingerprinting. They have to do their lift test. They have to do their TB test. There's training, there's orientation, there's job shadowing. And unfortunately, that's just something that we inherited. And the entire process is very time consuming. And I don't blame folks or new candidates. Sometimes they find other jobs within that time frame. And I don't blame them. They have to, feed their family. They have to get a job. And, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. We've had some challenges. For example, how do we attract talented individuals. We know there's individuals out there that want to work. How do we attract them to come in to work for a benefited position in a school system or even higher ed? I was at a restaurant the other day, and they were giving folks, new hires, a $500 sign-in bonus. I mean, it's just crazy out there. I'm sure you guys have seen similar employment opportunities out there, but we're a government agency. We just simply can't give a brand new substitute employee $500 to sign in. I mean, that's a process that needs to be approved. We are, of course, the challenges of just advertising on EdJoin. You know, not everybody goes to EdJoin. There's Monster, there's Indeed, there's other agencies that we can work with, and you know, we've had conversations with our directors and human resources, and they, of course, are entertaining that. Some of the other challenges that we had is during the onboarding process, we had other departments that weren't even working at work. They were at home. Of course, that caused other delays in the process. So as we are opening schools here in 2 weeks, which is great to have kids back, we are actively meeting with HR, and we've set some goals for 2021 on our onboarding process. So some of them are on EdJoin. We only used to advertise for 2 weeks. And then from there, HR would send us all the candidates that applied, whether it be 5 or 50. And we have to go over each one individually. Some school districts have their own internal hiring for their maintenance and operations department. Unfortunately, you know, we don't. We go through our standard human resources process, and you know, we team up with them and keep track of where our potential candidates are in the hiring phase. So moving forward, we're going to advertise on EdJoin continuously. And we tried that for the last month, and it has worked. So we have a continual pool of fresh candidates, and as the pool decreases, as the pool increases, we remove folks from the list, and we have an ongoing freshness, I guess you can say, with candidates. So that's one. The other hiring platform that we are discussing with HR is other platforms, Monster, Indeed, advertise on social media. Those are things that we're going to explore in 2021, so we can onboard someone or a candidate in 2 to 4 weeks. That's our goal for 2021. Again, earlier when I stated the pandemic has taught all of us how essential custodial team members are, maintenance and operations are. That has opened the doors with us a little bit with getting folks in HR on board with us to help us get successful and talented candidates. Another thing that we tried recently was our first ever job fair. And it was supposed to be outdoors, and it was highly marketed. We had, I think, close to 500 people sign up for multiple trades: food service, maintenance, grounds, custodial. And then, of course, a heat wave came, and we had to cancel the event. It was 107 to 114, so we canceled the event. So as part of our creativity, we decided to do a virtual job fair. And, you know, it went okay. A lot of technical difficulties. You know, maybe if we had a little more time to process and get departments all on board, it probably would have been better attended. But we had 60 plus people sign up for the maintenance and operations end when it was scheduled to be outdoors. And when it came down to the virtual job fair, we had 4. So, I mean, maybe for a variety of things, maybe folks just weren't comfortable with Zoom, or they had technical difficulties. You know, regardless, we tried it and it wasn't as expected, but we are exploring other opportunities later on down the road with HR. We have scheduled bi-weekly meetings with HR to communicate with them on what we can do to improve our onboarding process. And we are looking at other indoor job fair events as things become a little more open and safe. So that pretty much kind of summarizes how we do our onboarding. Substitute employees is a whole other realm. It's 8 to 12 weeks if we're lucky. Permanent custodial staff, depending on the opportunities that we're currently offering, it's 8 to 12 weeks. But again, we're looking on ways that we can encourage and motivate through social media, marketing, other online platforms. By the time you interview, screen, and do all of their pre-employment, most times we kind of lose folks to other job opportunities in the area or out of their employment zone, I guess, per se. So we have had our fair challenges over the last year, but we also had some pre-COVID. But because of the of how folks look at all custodial staff as being essential, we have engaged a little more in our HR process. So I'm pretty confident to the fact that our goal for 2021 is to define a hiring process that makes sense, and where we can set hiring goals anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So that's some of our challenges and our ongoing solutions that we hope to improve between now and December of 2021. So thank you all for attending. Appreciate all your support. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony. I have to comment on the irony that of everything happening with COVID, the reason that you couldn't have an in-person hiring fair was a heat wave. And that's like, that's frustrating. I feel your pain, how that's just like a frustrating turn of events, but I do appreciate you sharing all of the challenges that you've been facing and some of those solutions that are starting to really work for you. So thank you for sharing all of that. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that you continue to get some more talented candidates and can staff up, because as you said, this team that you're assembling is incredibly important in the work that they do as you get ready to have students back in your building. So thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. Next, I would like to introduce Kimberly Thomas from the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. Hi, Kim. So great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for joining us today. Just want to share a little bit about some of the things that we're facing on the other side of the country. Unlike Tony, we don't have quite the heat wave here, but we certainly are having our challenges getting our positions filled over on the southern eastern side of USA. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the employment recruitment things that we're trying to do on our end. And first, just to kind of give you an idea of what our campus looks like, we have a full-time staff in our facilities management division of just over 800 employees. And we're responsible for operating and maintaining all resident instruction facilities to include classrooms, labs, administrative areas, and research areas. And it equates to about 300 buildings at approximately 12 million square feet of usable space. We're also responsible for utility distribution systems, grounds, and the buildings. And we also provide support for housing, athletics, research areas through contracted and grant research funds and outlying units upon request. So with the return to full operations, our division has been faced with a vacancy shortage of nearly 90 positions. That includes some of our frontline workers, administration positions, and some of our leadership roles. So we've had several meetings to discuss how we're going to combat trying to bring folks in to help us to be ready on our campus for full operations. And one of the things that we came up with in the past, we relied heavily on our central HR to post and advertise our positions, but because we're in such a competitive nature right now with other units across our campus, departments and academic departments, as well as just the community, we decided that we were going to have our own recruitment or career fair, kind of in the way that Tony has mentioned. And if you see on the screen here, I'm just going to quickly run through some of these points. Our planning session to determine what we would do in our career fair, decision on what positions were appropriate for these fairs, on our decisions on where we wanted to advertise, as well as identifying that not all advertisement fit the same audience. So how to craft targeted messages. Next slide, please. So when we made the decision that we were going to have a career fair, we knew that we needed to have it fairly soon before our mid-August campus start date. So we actually are going to be having 2 job fairs this month, July 29th and July 31st. And the relevant positions that we decided, because we have so many, we're really going to focus in our career fair on our skilled trades positions, as well as our frontline and administrative positions. So we decided we were going to work with our central HR. We do have our own FMD HR department and our Department of Labor, who's just actually a mile and a half up the road. So it's really going to be helpful to bring their resources in as well. So positions such as electricians, groundskeepers, building service worker, which is the same as our custodian, for example. And then looking at data management folks, as well as administration, associate administrative positions, or secretaries, clerical workers, folks to help in our warehouse, so to speak. We decided that the best times to have the fair, since we're going to do 2, we're going to focus one during the afternoon or evening hours, and then we're going to have a second one on Saturday. So hoping to catch people as they get off work, typically around 4 o'clock. So we're going to go from about 2 o'clock to about 7 on the first one, and then on Saturday mornings, hoping to be able to have a lot of our community folks be able to participate in these job fairs. And as far as the location, we talked about having one at our local Department of Labor, because in Georgia, being one of the states that has decided not to utilize the federal pandemic funds anymore, people have to apply for jobs. And we are definitely going to take advantage of talking about the benefit package, the opportunity to get additional education as being an employee of UGA. And then we're going to have one at our building. We are in a centrally located area, large parking lot, greenways right across the street. So the idea of being able to have part of the fair outside and then bring people in. We'll have our IT team on board to help them with their online applications, and have our supervisors here on the spot to interview people as they come to the fair, with the idea that if they meet all of our requirements, to give them a letter setting up an in-person second interview to come back. And that's just to make sure that they have all of their physical credentials that they would need for that online application. Let's see what else. Advertising, we'll get to that in a little bit more, but having our communication on-site teams. We talked about our IT team. We also want to have some people here who are just going to be greeters, and just to be able to share and talk with people who might have some anxiety about filling out those online applications is going to be important. I think Tony kind of touched on, some people might feel a little bit more uncomfortable doing the online applications, and we want to have folks who can be here and help them out. Next slide. We all know some of the traditional advertising routes, such as the company HR website or a department website, industry trade publications, and local newspapers. And in the past and currently, we are certainly utilizing all of those to advertise our spots, but we want to be a little bit more proactive. Next slide. This is one advertising that our campus police department has utilized. And we like the idea because not only are we trying to encourage people in different ways that we are a great place to work, but we definitely feel that people feel comfortable if they see themselves in the department where they work. So we really like this idea where they incorporated a lot of their staff in the advertising picture. And we are working towards this as well to really show the diversity of the nearly 900 folks who work here from various levels, from frontline all the way up to leadership positions. So we did want to incorporate a diversity and inclusion piece in how we advertise to make sure people feel like this would be a great place to work. Next slide. And then with the idea that not all advertisement is created equal, we decided to really incorporate various new media in the approach of how to reach people. So using our Instagram and our Twitter and Facebook pages. We have some of our student workers our college students who've worked with us throughout the summer, have been working on some TikTok and Snapchat things, because we do have student employment positions. And one thing that's not on here that I want to mention could be an avenue for you. I've done it on my own LinkedIn page to share what are those open positions. Any way that we can reach people is what we're trying to do. Looking at having flyers and business cards that our employees can pass out, that brings them into this process as well. They might know friends that they go to church with or live in their neighborhood, or other parents that they know, just trying to get the word out about our positions. Media boards, kind of a park a truck with a banner sign, or renting billboards, or some of the other competitive advertisements that some of our food services and athletics departments have used in recent months. And also the idea of using some of the community events, to have a table at a farmer's market or any other type of community event where we can get the word out that we are accessible and we want people to consider us as an employer of choice. Now, one of the things that we also just recently worked on, we're going to do some radio ads, and we're going to have our own staff do these radio ads that will be on our campus radio station as well as our local sports channel. Hey, people, have a lot of people on the sports channels, and so we want to hit people where they are. We've also paid for ads that are going to be posted on the public transportation, the bus wraps. So as the buses are driving around town, we're going to target some communities where we know that we really want to try to reach out to our community to let them know that we have positions available. And then we also have received the flexibility to increase on the minimum higher end salary to be more competitive with some of the local companies. So these are just a few things that I wanted to share that we're doing. Hopefully it can help you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Kim. I love everything that you're doing that's so focused on, reaching out to people, finding where they are and meeting them there, and helping potential candidates easily sort of see themselves as part of your team, and a lot of great ideas. So thank you so much for that. Our final speaker today is Aaron Uresti from the University of California in Riverside. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. Have a slide here that we're going to be pulling up that we can share with you. This is kind of a brief overview of what I'll be covering with you today. Talking a little bit about just an overview of our department and what we do. Going in depth into our recruiting process. We'll be also talking about the onboarding process that we've developed. And then some of the challenges that we all seem to be facing at this point, and some of the solutions that we've kind of come up with to help us overcome those challenges. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little information about my campus and what we've done with our recruiting process over the past 4 years or so. We are one of 10 schools in the University of California school system, and we're located about 50 miles east of Los Angeles. Our campus has a population of about 25,000 students and 7,000 staff. Our team is responsible for cleaning most of the academic and housing buildings on the campus. This is a little unique in that our facilities department, custodial group, not only do we clean the academic side of the house, but we also clean all of the housing areas, the residence halls and the apartments. We total about 6 million square feet of space across 200 buildings. Since 2017, we've seen a large number of retirements happening within our custodial team. With an aging workforce, we're averaging anywhere between 5 to 10 custodians retiring from the university annually. We have about 150 employees in our team. As a result of this, we've turned over about 25% of our workforce in the last 4 years. We're also undergoing constant hiring, which has really caused us to have to take a deeper look into our recruiting process, which is what I'll be sharing with you today. Next slide. So our custodial management team has really taken ownership and influenced the recruiting process to ensure that we are not only hiring the right person for the job and our operation, but that we're also hiring candidates that are going to stay with us. We have a very strong partnership with our HR team that includes us in every step of the hiring process from cradle to grave. Our management team is responsible for customizing the job descriptions for the positions that we're hiring for so that we can make sure that the tasks, the duties, and the responsibilities are transparent and so that the candidate has a full understanding of what they are applying for. Custodial managers are also responsible for developing the interview questions and selecting the hiring committee for each recruitment. Committee is usually comprised of members of our custodial team and someone from an outside department that will interact with the final candidate once they're hired and in their job. The hiring manager will then lead the committee into deliberations and submit the final recommendation back to Human Resources as to which candidates will be pushed forward into the next process, which could be a second interview, reference checks, etc. Having worked myself as a technical recruiter for a large staffing firm before getting into the cleaning industry, I'm usually the person that will contact the final candidate and provide a verbal job offer, which I sort of enjoy as it kind of takes me back to my younger days before I had gray hair. The candidate verbally accepts the position and we can agree on a start date. Then we'll go ahead and submit a written offer, which is then sent for final acceptance. Next slide. So now what do we do once we have the new employee walk into the front door? Well, we onboard them. We created an onboarding program. It was developed by our custodial management team to ensure that we are getting new or existing employees. We also onboard employees that are being promoted within the organization. We want to get them acquainted with their role, their team, and the organization. We want our employees to be comfortable contributing from the start in order to help us reach our goals. So the picture that you see here is from an onboarding event that was held on March 9th, 2020, 4 days before our campus closed due to the pandemic, where we hired 14 senior custodians all on the same day. In the picture here, they're being trained on chemicals and proper microfiber use before they actually go out into the role and start on their assigned shift. Next slide, please. So the impact of the pandemic has put a lot of pressure on our staffing and recruiting efforts over the last year and a half. We faced budget reductions in our department, which caused some layoffs, a hiring freeze, and the elimination of vacant positions. On top of that, we continue to have a large number of retirements in our group. All of these factors have made it very difficult for us to try and prepare the campus for reopening in the fall. The good news is that we were recently informed that our budget has been replenished and we will be able to fill all of our open positions. The not so good news is that we have about 25 open senior custodian positions, 1 supervisor position that we need to fill in the next 10 weeks before our fall quarter begins. We need to fill all of our open positions just to be able to get back to restoring our cleaning service levels back to what they were pre-pandemic. Another challenge that we're seeing is that only about half of the number of applicants that are applying for our jobs are applying this year as opposed to what we've seen in the past. So for example, in a two-week span, we would usually see about 80 applications for a senior custodian position. The posting we just closed last week only saw about 40 applicants. Obviously, when you're trying to hire 25 people, 40 applicants, the numbers really aren't in your favor. But we're making constant changes to our process to try to overcome these hurdles. And we're already seeing some positive benefits. One thing that's very challenging for us is that due to collective bargaining agreement with our union, we are unable to contract out any custodial work. So that also means that if we were to utilize temporary staffing, which we had done in the past before the new clause came out in the contract, we could do that if we had somebody out on a long-term leave, or we were in the process of recruiting to fill vacant positions. But just before the pandemic came, that new clause came into play, and we are no longer allowed to use temporary staffing services. So we've had to be really innovative in some of the practices that we've been trying to do in order to overcome the challenges. One thing we did this summer was we actually collaborated with our dining and hospitality department. They had to lay staff off since their dining facilities remained closed. We've been able to take some of their staff for the summer to help us prepare our residence halls and our campus apartments for the fall quarter reopening. Another thing that we're doing is at the end of the month, we will be tabling at a job fair that's actually going to be held in person and hosted by our county's Employment Resource Center to try and obtain a higher number of applicants for our open positions. Next slide. So in closing, just want to thank everybody again for joining us today. And I hope that we were all able to provide you with some good ideas on recruiting and hiring staff as we prepare for the upcoming school year. And just want to wish everybody out there good luck, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron, for sharing all of that. It sounds like some of these challenges, everyone is experiencing some of the same stuff, but appreciate some of the creative solutions that you've shared. So, and thank you all of our panelists for sharing all of that. We're going to move into our Q&A session. I shared this message in the chat, but also just want to encourage for those of you listening today, definitely continue to submit your questions. We've got a list of them. We are going to, we're going to go through, but continue to share questions through the Q&A feature, but also definitely also use that to share, tell us, are you experiencing similar challenges? Do you have you figured out a solution to one of them that you didn't hear mentioned today? We definitely want to know. We'll be continuing to write about this subject and share about it. And so please, use that Q&A feature to also share information with us about what is happening with you in your schools. So we definitely want to hear from you. Okay, so let's dig in, because we've got a list of questions. The first one of the first questions is, and this is for any one of you, how are you handling sort of, we heard a little bit about, Tony, you mentioned like other employers able to offer, signing bonuses type of thing. Kim, you mentioned the ability to increase the sort of base wage. How are you all thinking about and balancing, creating a compensation that is attracting new candidates in this environment, but that also isn't in conflict with your current team members? And so how are you thinking about that and creating that balance? Kim, you're nodding, so I'm going to ask you to answer first.
Yes, thank you. We recognize that, but one of the things that I have, told my senior administration is that while we are at this, position where compression is going to be a problem, we didn't get here overnight, and we do need to recognize that some of those frontline positions, the salary was low, and if we want to get candidates, and certainly well-qualified people, and we be the attractors to get them to stay here, then we need to increase that. And so our central HR and our administration is working with us. They have restored, our budget that was cut along the same lines that Aaron talked about. And I'm utilizing some of that budget to help offset these compression issues. And then longer term, our central HR is working with an outside consulting firm to help with these compression issues over time.
Thanks, Kim. Tony or Aaron, anything that you would want to chime in on that question?
Sure. I would just add, I think for us, our total compensation package for a custodial position is very competitive. When I compare us to the private sector, and I look at, what a building service contractor might offer in the marketplace, I think we have a pretty lucrative package that is something that we can sell and be competitive with. I think some of the things that we struggle with is just the challenge of the outreach and getting out there. How do we advertise this? I think social media is a great idea. That's something that we're definitely going to start trying to pick up on. Getting out in front of job fairs and employment centers, I think is also a good way that is going to start helping us be able to outreach more and get in front of people, and because they just simply might not know. I mean, we're only able to market through our job site and then Indeed, and that's really about it. So I think it's really trying to be innovative and creative and find ways to outreach into some other areas of the market.
Thanks, Aaron. I suspect, Tony, I'm going to ask you, but I suspect that this might be one area where there can be a significant difference between higher education institutions, or at least some of them in K-12 districts. Do you want to weigh in, Tony?
Well, just to bring it home, we offer a really good competitive salary comparable to other school districts, K through 12. Higher ed has, probably a little more on the salary schedule, but these are things that we've tried to negotiate with our bargaining units and HR for years. And what we try to highlight is, of course, the benefit package. It's a great job, paid vacation, salary, all the wonderful benefits that an entry level person off the street with some skills that we would support their training and their success. I mean, we're all in. It's just trying to lure those people in has been a challenge because of our slim marketing strategies. Since we only do one platform, we spend a lot of our time simply just reaching out to our staff members to try to help motivate them and others to become part of our team. We have a building right across the street. It's an adult education. So we have a lot of folks from special ed, from county government agencies that route employment through their office. And I'm there once a month just trying to highlight and motivate them that if they want a great career in the custodial trades, we have opportunities for each and every one of them. I always tell them we can hire 20 people today. Unfortunately, you'll have to go through the process, which takes a little longer than normal. But other than that, we try to get in front of them as often as we can.
Thanks, Tony. All three of you mentioned, being very thoughtful and strategic about how and where you're doing outreach. I'm wondering if any of you have, in addition to some of these like hiring platforms, have partnered with like other community organizations that might have a different, a different audience. I'm thinking here in Chicago about Healthy Schools campaign, but I'm just wondering in your area if anyone has identified other organizations, either nonprofits or other organizations in your area that would be good partners for helping spread the word.
Well, I know when I was working with Clark County School District as the executive director, one of the organizations that I worked with was Goodwill Industries. And that was a really good outlet for us to bring in, frontline custodians to assist in the schools. And it was a very positive program for us. But now that we are in a situation where we have so many positions from frontline to skilled trades and things like that, I think working with our Department of Labor is going to help us to be able to pull in a wider net. And one of the things I've challenged my hiring managers to, don't just weigh out people who might not have direct skills, because this is a time when people are really interested in changing their career paths. If you've had people who maybe worked at a manufacturing plant or something like that, don't just automatically rule them out as a good candidate. We need to talk to them and see, because if they were working a second shift, this might be an opportunity for them to help their family, get education. So, broaden your perspective on what is a good candidate.
Thanks, Kim. A question that is came in from Mario. He is the custodial services coordinator at Cumberland County Schools in North Carolina. Mario, I'm so glad you're with us today. Mario's asking, he says, one of their biggest challenges to go along with COVID-19 related stuff is that their custodians are required to obtain a CDL license to help drive school buses at their assigned schools. Is anyone also having that challenge?
What's a CDL license?
I believe it's the license that you need in order to drive larger vehicles. Kim's nodding her head because I know.
Commercial driver's license.
Thanks. I wasn't sure exactly what the acronym was, but yeah. I know that, here at Healthy Green Schools and Colleges, we've been hearing from schools all across the country throughout this time. And larger districts and smaller districts, everybody facing similar things, but with different solutions. And we had been hearing a lot that there were sort of this all hands on deck, you know, even if it wasn't how things were done before, folks who are now in this role are also doing this. In our experience, we also heard a ton of this, for example, on the food service side, as schools were struggling to serve food during the pandemic. Everybody was chipping in and doing things that were different than maybe what they had done before, or in addition to what they were responsible for doing before. I'm not surprised to hear that in some districts, custodial workers are also part of the team that drive school buses. So Mario, it doesn't sound like we've got a great answer for you here today, but I'm glad that you shared that. Kim?
Yeah. And let me just say, you know, and this is my opinion, that is a really tough thing, because having someone who is actually trained and CDL licensed to be able to handle the pressures of driving a school bus with all of the safety precautions that come with it, whether it's the students on the bus or just the regular outside driving safety things that can happen at the top of the moment. Someone swerves into you, or you're trying to, you know, get kids off the bus and you got to be looking with your head on a swivel. I would definitely be very concerned to try to, you know, put a custodian who may not have the type of years of training that level of expertise would require. So certainly all of the school districts and states have different rules and regulations, but here in where we're from in Clark County, we would definitely not be on board with that.
Thanks, Kim. Switching to a different question, you know, of course, as you all are doing all of this work to fill these open positions, you of course have all of this work still that needs to be done, and you know, both throughout the summer and in preparation for the upcoming school year. So can you talk a little, I'll ask each of you to answer this question. Can you talk a little bit about how you are revising the work that you are doing, given the staffing levels that you have? Are there things that you're just not doing at all? I guess it's sort of a three-part question. How are you revising what you're doing? Are there things that you're just not getting to at all? How are you communicating that, or what are the challenges in sharing that with leadership at your school? And are you investing in any kind of technology that helps create any efficiencies where maybe you didn't have that option before? That's a really big question. I can break it down for you again, but Tony, do you want to go first?
So over the course of the last year, we have tried many different avenues to get folks on board. And because of the sheer mass of our vacancies and other departments who have either not been at work or they're working part-time remotely from home, has delayed the entire, you know, onboarding process. We've communicated to them as well if there are other outside agencies that we can use as a hiring resource, a consultant per se. And I'm still waiting to hear back on that, but we have explored that to help accelerate, because through the course of COVID, we didn't know if we were going to start school in 2 weeks, 2 months. We had to be prepared. So we haven't really used any outside consulting firms, even though we've tried. I know other school districts here locally have seeked out those resources to kind of put a rush, but there's challenges with getting bargaining units on board and HR on board. That takes months of negotiation. Again, our goal for 2021 is to get everybody on board and have a large capacity of substitute custodians. I mean, I'm being very real when I tell you we're 40 people short every single day. 40, that's huge. You can never recover from that. Never recover, because we have not stopped work. We have been actively employed from last March, actively deep cleaning our schools. When we're done, we deep clean them over again. And we have some outside facilities. So we haven't stopped. And all of what you talked about earlier in your three-part question, we have touched on a little bit of all of those things, but I go through the chain of command and we have conversations, and from there, depending if it's a priority of business to discuss, then those things are discussed. So again, we're still actively looking at things and ways to improve.
Thanks, Tony. Kim, go ahead.
Yes, we are using technology. I was just trying to type in the chat box as well. But we have an electronic work management system where our customers can send us electronic work requests, and then that work order is sent electronically to a specific shop to get work done in, so we can generate tickets and be able to communicate back with our customers through our chat lines, as well as using mobile devices for our custodial supervisors and other shop supervisors to make kind of cataloging the work that we do, preventive to maintenance, a little bit easier to track. We're also using software for delivery tickets to help us kind of keep track of that and be able to send a customer an electronic alert to let them know when we're coming or if there's an issue. So we're trying to pick and choose. I know some of the custodial equipment might run on computer-driven type of software. We're not there yet because, again, that takes a lot of IT, and those are usually very expensive. And I'd rather put that type of money into people and training as much as I can.
Thanks, Kim. Aaron, I'm actually going to change it up on you. We just had another question come in, and I want to pose this one too. This question is coming in from someone who is in Canada, and is saying that one of the challenges they're facing there is that their current protocols are being driven by sort of the public health requirements of the time, but given COVID, they obviously change. And so could you talk a little bit about how the CDC recommendations and anything else that you're looking at, like how those change and how they impact your planning? Because are you faced with a challenge where you would have to staff up to meet what they are right now, but if they change, then you would potentially be overstaffed 6 months from now, for example? Or is that not really a concern?
No, it's a concern, and that's a really good question. But we really, we can only do so much with the people we have. And, the CDC, I know they kind of scaled down, in the United States, scaled down surface cleaning and saying that surface transmission is a lot lower than what they had initially thought at the beginning of the pandemic. But they're still requiring or recommending daily disinfection of high-touch surfaces. With the staffing numbers that we have, that's something that we just simply can't meet. So just for us to be able to get close to that is our target. We're definitely taking the recommendations, but at the same time, we have to really balance that with what we can do with the amount of people we have. Can we do daily disinfection in certain areas like classrooms and restrooms? Sure, absolutely. We were doing that before the pandemic. But when you start getting into some of the other areas like, maybe stairwells or hallways or elevators, it gets a little bit more challenging for us. The other thing I just wanted to touch on real quick, because it's pretty important to what we're doing, back to that last question about efficiencies. We are currently taking our labor, it's the most precious resource we have, and we are doing a full audit of our operation. We are workloading every single building that we have. We have the software to do it. Really just opening up the hood of the car, taking out all the parts and kind of looking at everything building by building to see actually how many people we need to do routine cleaning in all of our buildings. Now, if we find that we have a surplus of people, then obviously we can take that and we can put that into some additional tasks like extra disinfecting in areas where we might be falling a little short to get closer to those CDC recommendations.
Thanks, Aaron. We are just about out of time, so we're going to pause there. We didn't get to every single question, but I think we covered many of them. So thank you so much, Aaron and Kim and Tony, for sharing with us today. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, and I hope that you all listening have maybe gotten an idea today that you didn't already have. And I see that some of you have also been sharing some of the challenges that you've been facing and some ideas too. And we'll make sure to include those. We're going to be active on social media, and we'll send out a follow-up email as well. So before we sign off, I just want to remind you of a couple of things that we mentioned earlier. Our Healthy Green Schools and Colleges Standard, the public comment is open. Public comment period is open through the Saturday, July 17th. Please do read it and provide your feedback. The more folks that we get to comment on it, the better of a product we'll end up with in the end. So please read it and share it with others that you think might be interested. Again, we are looking for K-12 districts and higher ed institutions to join our group of early adopters, along with the panelists that you see today who are part of that group, really kind of championing this work and being willing to share, their expertise and give us feedback. And we'd love to welcome you. So check out healthygreensschools.org for more information on that. Our next webinar is coming up on July 28th, how you can use American Rescue Funds for your cleaning and facility operations. And if you have any other questions, my email is here, so please reach out. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. I hope that you have a great afternoon. Thanks so much.